And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Warburg Infusion Entertainment Review. It's time for episode 53. I'm your host, Thomas, a.k.a. Mr. Warburg. Alongside me, as always, is my co host, Patrick, a.k.a. Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everybody.
And joining us tonight, our first guest in a little bit, we've got our friend Chris, a.k.a. Gammakoruchador.
Yo,
Woohoo!
Now, Chris is joining us as he's seen two of the shows we're going to be talking about primarily tonight, that being She Hulk and The Rings of Power. The latter debuting on Amazon Prime and the former on Disney Plus. Their full first seasons are done and in the books. Whether or not we get a season 2 of She-Hulk is yet to be determined, but we know Rings of Power is coming back, and they have a 5-year plan.
Yep.
So we figured, now that it's all wrapped up, might as well take the time to talk a little Tolkien with Chris and get his thoughts on She-Hulk as well. So before we get started, I suppose we should probably talk about our general, what we've been watching or playing and or reading. So Fusion, actually, you know what? Let's go with our guest first.
Yeah.
Chris, in the
Let's let
world
the
of
guests
pop
have the
culture
floor.
media, what have you been consuming lately?
I've been consuming a lot of Pokemon Arceus right now. I'm preparing for Pokemon Violet and Scarlet to be coming out in just under a month. But yeah, I mean, just finished Rings of Power and She-Hulk last week. I have been putting off Andor as the first 3 episodes really didn't grip me. But I'll go back and start watching those again and getting hopefully caught up and ready for what's coming. I hope it gets better for me. And then what if I after watching the Rings of Power, I've started going through the actual trilogy again. So I'm watching through the extended editions like all human beings who have a beating heart should.
I still think only the first one's actually a better movie with the extended, but that's just me. Because the first one, all the
Yeah.
scenes fit. In the second and third, especially the third, I'm like, oh, I see why they cut that. Like,
Well,
I mean,
the third was just long to begin with. The theatrical cut,
Right.
yeah,
because right when we get to back to Gondor, or we're talking, the story goes on after that. You're like, oh, okay, I thought this was it. They all bow, and we're gonna be wrapping up. And it's like, nope, we still got another 45 minutes of this.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. But yeah, that's good. Yeah, man. Do you have the Blu-rays? I'm very curious on like, or
I
do
have I have the 15 disc box set of the extended editions on Blu-ray, yeah.
Alright.
I if I had space, I would want to get a bigger TV like that has better quality cuz everybody says Helm's Deep is the best, but I'm a Pelennor Fields battle man myself. Um King Theoden is my favorite Lord of the Rings character. Um So I mean I love the ride of the Rohirrim into Pelennor Field. It's one of those scenes that I watch that like my heart just bumps and like I get excited and pumped up every single time I watch that. Into the Mumakil, into um the battle with the Witch King of Angmar. Like I love the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Um the Rohan are my favorite locale and musical theme and like visual theme. Like they're all my favorite everything about Lord of the
and
Rings.
Carl
So
Urban. Just gonna throw it out
I
there.
mean Carl
Yeah.
Urban, heck yeah.
Can't go wrong
Yeah,
with that.
you can't.
Whatever happened to that guy, man?
Yeah,
Like,
what
did
did
he
he
have
ever
a
go on to
career?
do?
I mean, seriously,
Yeah,
like,
him and then that weird skinny guy that like put on a white suit in Two Towers and like fought Frodo and Sam a bunch. You know, we were talking about this. What did that guy do?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but I
If
think he
you,
yeah,
made
we
some monkey movies or something,
yeah.
like
If you do upgrade to
Most
4K,
Valuable Primate.
just as a heads up, they do have a really cool box set that has both the theatrical and the extended cut in 4K.
Ooh.
So I bought that a couple weeks ago because Warburg and I were very worried about, like, we had this conversation a couple months back about with HBO Max dropping some of their IP to save money. Obviously, that's going to happen. We were hearing stories about Netflix possibly doing it, even Amazon, like
Right.
stuff that's been paid for. So it's like I was always a big proponent of buying digital, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back and buy some physical media. Bought that box set, man. Just a stack of
Honest,
about Mission Impossible, Back to the Future, the Indiana Jones trilogy, and I did buy Lord of the Rings, and it comes with both. So it's really cool. You get it's broken up into two sets. One is like two box containers. One container has the theatrical cut, and one has the extended cut. So like you can just pick whichever one.
yeah. If I can recommend to you, I don't know if you've ever done this. Watch them with cast commentary on. It's very interesting. You even get like some Christopher Lee stuff, which like he's
Really?
such a smart guy. So him talking through the Two Towers is such a good. It's just incredible listening to him speak. But then you have like funny parts from Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd. I think Dominic Monaghan, Billy Boyd, Sam Astin, Sam Astin or
Sean
Sean,
Astin.
Sean
Sean
Astin.
Astin, and Elijah Wood all did their recordings together. Christopher Lee did his alone. Vigo did his alone. Johnny Rustavi did his alone. I think Orlando Bloom did his with somebody else. I can't remember. But like it's really interesting going through listening to that. Of course the Peter Jackson commentary is incredible as well. Um but I have multiple times listened to just the cast commentary going through those movies. I think
That
it's
was my favorite thing about transitioning over from VHS to DVD was all of the audio commentaries for some of these
oh
movies,
yeah.
like Fight Club, Ocean's 11. Like some of these guys have like fantastic audio. Like
Plus, you get the
not enough.
legendary Armageddon Ben Affleck one. Like,
Oh
it's
God,
so
yeah.
good.
Ooh.
um,
Ooh.
Him just
it,
shitting on the director for like an hour. He's
Hour.
incredible.
It's great. Not another teen movie, horrible satire movie, fucking hilarious like cast commentary. Chris Evans and everybody in there they're just you could tell they had a blast doing this such a stupid movie, right? I really recommend like if you want to watch like favorite commentaries, like that was one of my favorite ones for a long time. But Fight Club also, just hearing Brad Pitt and Norton just talk it out, it was just great.
Mm-hmm.
Talking with it was Norton and Pitt, and then Fincher had his own separate one. And sometimes the director is really milquetoast when they talk about the movie, unless they're just kind of boisterous to begin with by nature. But like, yeah, Fincher not so much, but like Pitt and Norton were fantastic in that one. But like, I'll have to catch the commentary on these. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Never done it. Need to.
See, this is why I wanted
Anyways,
to talk Tolkien with Chris.
yeah, yeah, man.
I didn't at the beginning of quarantine. I had a friend message me and they're like, "Oh, we're going to do a Zoom call cuz Zoom was a big thing right when quarantine started.
Mhm.
And we're going to play Lord of the Rings Trivial Pursuits and we're going to try and make this a thing." And we did like 3 different times of doing it, but after the first one, we were all like, "Oh man, we really need to brush up." So we all on our own time rewatched all the movies, watched cast commentary. I watched every single behind the scenes so that I could win this stupid Trivial Pursuit Lord of the Rings. And like, so I it's been a couple years, but I do know my stuff a little bit about the
Was
movies
that
at
when you
least.
got into the lore, or were you a fan of the lore
No, I've
before?
I've loved the Lord of the Rings. I never I never saw the first 2 in theaters. I did get to actually see the third one in theaters when it came out, and after that, I was like, "Oh, I want to actually watch." Well, I'd seen the first 2 just before seeing that, but like, I want to get into it a little bit more. And then, honestly, getting back to it, I forgot how much I loved them. This was in Halo 4. They had done a competition, where it was like there was a multiplayer competition and then there was a Spartan Ops competition. And I entered the Spartan Ops competition, which was you just had to play a bunch. It was how many levels of Spartan Ops you could beat. And it was all within this week-long period. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this. I spent 16 hours a day for a week just playing Spartan Ops. And in order to do that, I just had movies on a TV right next to me. I watched through The Lord of the Rings 3 times that week. And one of those was cast commentary. But like doing that, I was just like, I really dig these movies. Like this is big for me. And then like D&D started happening and So like I got more into fantasy from that, and so like they're kind of like my Star Wars to sci-fi. They're my gateway to fantasy type of thing. So like
Cool.
they're my thing for
Nice.
fantasy.
Nice. All right.
So Fusion, what about you? What have you been up to?
Man, outside of work, catching up on some old stuff. I rewatched finished season 2 of Agents of Shield. First two seasons were fun. I really want to catch up on Flash before the final season starts up at the beginning of the year. But I'm going to start from the very beginning. Remember you and I've said this. First two seasons of the Flash, phenomenal
Yeah,
storytelling, right?
season one alone is like, damn, it's incredible.
uh, from start to finish, season one is like the perfect storytelling for a TV show with a low budget, right? I mean, they did the best they could with their special effects, but like it was just a great like story all the way to the finale was just unbelievable. So I'm gonna catch that, but I'm still slowly working through the box set of the Star Trek. I just finished Wrath of Khan. Fucking great movie, man.
It's so
So
good.
Search for Spock is up next on my list. That's another 4K box that I bought. And then I went back and read some old comics, the Extreme X-Men, which early 2000s storylines, very kind of in style of the 2000s with Salvador La Rocha as the artist, very shiny looking X-Men style characters. Some good stuff in there. I think if you were a big X-Men fan, that storyline. The Extreme X-Men is where Psylocke dies for a brief period of several years before she comes back. Everyone comes back in the X-Men. And then yeah, just playing a little bit of Scum. I don't know if you guys
I
ever
thought I
heard of
saw
that.
that on Steam.
I've seen you playing that on Steam. I was like, what is Scum?
It is DayZ, but beautiful. Like it's a much more manageable gameplay. Basically, it's like they took the old game Manhunt and DayZ together. So you're a
Okay.
you're a prisoner that's on death row, and the beginning of the story, you're dropped on this island as part of a game show, and like it's just like it's like a snuff film where you go out there and you like kill people, and but they have like mind controlled zombies out there. They call them puppets, and it's just a zombie survival game, but it's open world, and then you can do PvE or PvP. Most servers are PvP. You try to survive, build out your base, get supplies, and either not die by the zombies and monsters that are out there, or other felons out there that are looking to get there. So it's just like DayZ, but it's just style a little different. Now it came out what 3.5, 4 years ago.
Sounds right.
um yeah, 2019. It was heralded for its graphics in terms of like for an open world like that, like the sunsets, the skyline, the weather, everything's beautiful when you walk it. Gameplay is a little hard, like the movement and like the inventory and the crafting is a little hard to get used to because you have to use your mouse and keyboard combination for a lot of stuff. It's not as one click as a lot of the other open world crafting games are. But yeah, been playing that lately, man. Waiting for a Modern Warfare 2
Oh
remastered.
yeah. I just started the campaign today because you can start. If you
So we could.
pre-ordered it, you get the week early. So
I thought you could get all of it. It's just the campaign we get a week early.
it's
The
just the
campaign.
campaign a week early.
So
Yeah.
Warzone 2 is not coming out till next week. Okay.
Not until next Friday.
Yeah, the
I believe.
28th.
28th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't work weekends, so hey,
I was gonna ask, how'd that turn
squatting
out?
up next week?
I'm game.
Hey man,
Let's do it.
Friday.
Let's do it.
Let's do. I'm up for a Friday night or
Heck
Saturday
yeah,
night.
I'm here
Let's
for
do
it.
Heck yeah.
Let's do it.
My next Friday, there's no
Pass.
movie coming out, so
Perfect.
No, we got Black Adam this
Black
weekend.
Adam today. I'm going tomorrow with Joey.
Okay.
Haven't hung out with Joey in a while, so we're gonna go see Black Adam. I'm not expecting greatness. I'm just expecting some fun. Which
Yeah.
all the reviews I follow are like, yeah, it's not the best thing, but it's fun. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine with me.
I think
That's all I
it's
expected.
probably gonna be there where it's probably gonna be there where Aquaman was. Kind of like okay, yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. And I mean, as long as Dwayne Johnson's having a ball, it's probably gonna be a fun time.
And Pierce Brosnan is Doctor Fate. Come on.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, Pierce Brosnan's in it?
Yeah, he's
I didn't
Dr.
know
Fate.
that.
He's Doctor Fate.
Awesome.
That's like one of my favorite DC characters as a kid was Doctor Fate. And
Nice.
yeah, there's gonna be. I think there are a couple of little surprises throughout the film too, and whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna go catch it this weekend as well. Go sneak
Yeah,
a
I think so
matinee in.
too.
Go sneak a matinee in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we'll probably be
This-
talking that and House of the Dragon as the finale for that is this
Yes.
Sunday. I got to message Chloe and see if she and Nick probably too. See if they want to talk House of the Dragon
Yeah.
because I know they've been
Hell,
watching it.
hell of a first season, man. Took me by
Dude, it's been
surprise.
awesome.
Right.
Other shows,
Especially the last episode. Oh man.
dude, busting
What
out
a
of
way to
John with a fucking dragon. Oh my god, that was
such
so many people died.
such a boss move. It's like, yeah, they're peasants, whatever.
Yeah, it was incredible. Chris, if you ever get a chance, House of the Dragon's dope.
Yeah.
I
What do-
I I have no inclination or desire to get into the Games of Thrones universe.
I will
I've
say this is
never-
more quickly paced than Game of Thrones,
Okay.
especially the first season of Game of Thrones because they followed the book's pacing, which was very slow.
Yep.
This season's been very, like, it's very much going at a quick pace, which I appreciate.
I mean, here's the thing though, and we'll get into this, but Rings of Power, I really like it, and it's not a fast show.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second because I got other shows.
Yeah.
Number one,
Yes.
to your point about Andor, I think it would have been better dropped in 3 episode chunks because the episode 4 through 6 chunk, holy shit, that would have been just an incredible movie. Just that would have been amazing.
Okay.
Like you take the setup of 3 where he finally meets the Imperial, like the guy who's helping with the rebellion,
Right.
and then you
Yeah.
throw that with episodes 4 through 6. It's a movie. It's incredible. That all should have
Yeah,
dropped
my-
as one chunk.
Yeah.
My issue with the first 3 episodes was you could have done all of what you did in 3 episodes in an episode.
But I
And
appreciate
what-
the slowness of it because it is a slow burn. Essentially, not quite spy drama, but it's in that, it's in that vein. And that's why I appreciate them taking the pace and tone that they
Okay.
are.
And Warburg even felt like, hey, that those first 3 episodes could have just been like an intro movie.
Yeah, they didn't need to break them. They could have
They didn't have to break
aired
them
them
up.
consist as
Yeah.
one
I
piece.
agree. Yeah.
Because
I-
all that did
I-
is
I
take you
agree
out
with
of
on
it.
that. Yeah.
Like seeing the intro 3 times and that's stupid because you're already giving it at the same time, right? Who doesn't have an hour and a half? Like it wouldn't have been that
Right.
long cutting out all the credits and stuff, to air it as one thing. But the only reason I suppose kind of maybe the union won't let them do that because they were billed at they were like a billing as episodes, so that you need per episode credits in terms of the
Yep.
union stuff.
Mm.
That's the big thing because
That's probably
sometimes-
why.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
still feel like they should have at least planned that as here's Andor, here's an hour 15 straight of just Star Wars goodness, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it would have gone over better. But episodes 4 through 6, if you watch them back to back to back, man, what a ride! That's a good
All
time.
right. Maybe I'll do that this weekend too.
You definitely should. Another good time, Star Trek Lower Decks, absolutely again, 10 out of 10. I love when comedy shows get emotional and do it super well. Because this week was a fucking gut punch. Where I'm actually mad at a character for some stupid bullshit. And it hits, man. It's such a great Star Trek comedy show. Man, that is some deep fucking cuts. Like concept art from movies that never even saw the light of day becoming main set pieces in shows. It's deep cut shit. But they're telling still really engaging stories and character arcs throughout those episodes. It's damn. It's just impressive. Especially given that the first season really wasn't anything to write home about. And then they really found their voice. And it's been amazing ever since. I'd almost say it's close to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where the first season was kind of, tonally mismatched. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't quite have a direction until the one thing happens with Winter Soldier. And then it becomes an amazing show. Lower Decks, man, once they get near the finale of season 1, off to the races, and it's just straight 10s all the time. That's what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. turned into in seasons 2 and 3, more or less. So, I'm really, really liking Lower Decks. Other than that, I think it's time to actually sit down and talk about Rings of Power. We've referenced it enough. It's time to talk about it. Now 20 minutes into the episode. All right.
I feel like this is what happens every time I'm on.
Hey,
It goes
it happens.
way
It's not
longer
just
than
you.
ever
It's not
expected.
just you. It's not
I
just
mean,
you.
it's true. It's true.
All right, let me make a roughly 1930 for the mark there. Okay, so Rings of Power is finally finished. Season 1 is done on Amazon. So, starting with our guest once again, Chris, what are your overall thoughts on Season 1 of Rings of Power?
I love it. I am so hyped for season 2. yes, I can understand a little bit of predictability that you were talking about earlier, but I also think that uh, like it just felt to me even from the beginning, which I think I think we were talking about it Fusion a little bit on Discord about how you felt that it was a little bit slow at the beginning and it just felt like it just wasn't really getting anywhere fast enough. To me, that's Lord of the Rings. Like when I watch Fellowship of the Ring, like it's a lot of walking. It's a lot of setup into the world, and they're having to kind of bring you back to 2,500 years before those movies happen. Um, and they have to introduce you to these characters that we know, but you have to they have to tell you these aren't the same characters because it's 2,500 years ago. Um, so I liked the slowness of it. I think um that what it did into, I think it was episode 6 where the oh shit moment was. I think once you got to that point, it kind of floods back being like, "Oh, that's why I needed all that other stuff." Because now that we're here, I needed to get all of those ingredients to bake this pie kind of deal. Um so I think that I hate saying this, but Amazon did a good job. I hate giving credit to Mr. Bezos and his money, but I got to give it to him. They've done great with The Boys.
And The
I'm going to
Expanse.
trust them, and The
Yes.
Expanse, um
And Invincible. Don't forget
and
Invincible.
Invincible. Have they
I still can't believe we haven't got any update on season 2 for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard
I
anything on
haven't
It's
that.
I haven't heard
been
anything.
a year, 18 months.
Yeah, it's been I finished that show when I was living in Texas, so
Yeah,
over a year
it
and a
was
half
March
ago.
2021 that it aired.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, but yeah, I think it's going over great. I think the acting is fantastic. I think the writing is it. Some people don't think it's fantastic because it's like there's a lot of like metaphor being part of it, but like that's Tolkien to me. That's how Tolkien wrote his characters. I mean, Bilbo saying, "I feel like butter scraped over too much bread." You have,
They used the old fashioned without, like
Yeah.
within
yeah,
and without. Like that is so old fashioned.
yeah, like it feels like a timepiece, and I think it's written really well. Yes, the green screens are kind of terrible, but aside from the green screens, like the digital elements look great. That troll in the first episode looked incredible. Um, the oh shit moment. I don't know if we do spoilers
Go.
now or if we do those
We'll
later.
go. We'll get through our general thoughts first, and then we'll do
Yeah,
spoilers.
but like the oh shit moment looked great. Um, I think the costume design is incredible. Um, characters that are filling shoes of characters that we already know are doing a fantastic job at living up to their other actors from the movies, I think. Uh I've just I've fallen in love with all of the characters too. They didn't make anybody stand out to be like I hate them. Like even if they were a bad guy, I was like I still like you as a character. And I think they've done a really good job with that. So I overall 2 thumbs up.
Okay, so let's go the other
Yeah.
side. What I'm assuming is probably not an entirely lockstep opinion. Fusion, what did you think of the first season?
No, I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna echo some of the praises here. The score, the music is phenomenal. The dialogue is well written, and Chris, you hit the nail on the head here. Well, actually, you both did. This feels like Tolkien wrote these. wrote the scripts for these stories. Like you feel like, okay, how just the dialogue feels very old school. It doesn't feel like we've modernized it too much because whenever you do rehashing or rebooting or extending an IP that's really old, you kind of tend to kind of evolve the characters a bit. Like I think a perfect example of that is Andor, where there's a lot I love about Andor. The one thing I did notice is the dialogue is much more modernized if you really pay attention to it compared to Star Wars, the original trilogy and the prequels. Like it just feels like as we're writing more and more, they're getting a little more comfortable with just adapting the dialogue and modernizing it a little bit.
Well,
This doesn't feel
I
like that.
I saw a tweet today. Speaking to not to cut you off there, but
No,
I want to
sure,
make this
sure,
point.
sure.
Somebody was like, "Oh, they got that. Oh, they fly now dialogue about Gotham Knights," and I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
that is a trend. Like the did that just happen? You know, like that's a
yeah,
question, and that grates on me every time a media IP pulls it off, and
yeah.
I hate when shows pull that. Like some of the Star Trek stuff of the new Trek did that, but like notably Stranger Worlds does not. So like that to that point, like that's one new thing I wanted to make that point
Sure,
while you
sure.
so back to you.
No, no, no. And here's the thing. I did not. I didn't dislike the first couple episodes. It was just a lot slower pace for me, and a lot of it was me jumping into a bunch of different movies, catching up on a bunch of old films and stuff that I've been, purchasing recently. On top of that, The House of the Dragon, which is a slower paced show, but it's very different. So to have that kind of that medieval, I guess, is like I'm an '80s guy, so the best way to just describe it is like that medieval type of gothic type of look for your storytelling. Um, I think for me it was like okay, it is slower pace, and I'm going to say this, but a lot of the great shows have very slower pace first seasons. The Sopranos, arguably one of the greatest shows ever. The first season has its interesting and good moments. Very slow paced first season. Okay, arguably the greatest drama show ever, Breaking Bad. It's hard to get past that first season. I tell people that have never watched it before, it's not awful. It's really good, but the pacing is really slow, and the big moments are kind of just really spread thin. And it's not till you get to the second season where shit just takes off. So man, they could be really setting the table. And Chris, you're right in that. Like they actually, and Bezos was really outspoken about that. Like, hey, if we're doing Lord of the Rings, we're doing Lord of the Rings. Like we're not going to say, okay, here's the budget, let's try to make a Lord of the Rings TV show and make it work. He's like, no, we've got the money. Make the movie, like make the
Mhm.
show the way we want, like do it right. And they did that. They did that. Now, as the season goes on, it gets better for me, but I will say it's still a slower paced show for me. Like if it was a little up a notch or two, it'd been fine, but I'm not complaining about it. The big reveal is, great. I think the casting's phenomenal across the board. When they introduce Isildur, the way they do it is all like on the boat. It's really cool because it's like, okay, you're gonna have to get him at some point, based off of just the lore. And then when you hear his name being called out, you're like, okay, all right, we're here. Like this is it. The big reveal at the end in the season finale. You're like, holy shit. I guess you could say the two reveals, but you're just like, holy shit, we're really going to do this. It leads you to, hey, we're gonna go all in for season two. And like Warburg, you said, because Bezos has said this, there's a 5-year plan in place to tell this story. Okay, that's great, man, because at least we know we're not going to be squeezing out 8, 9 seasons out of this. We're going to get a 5-season story, and we're going to be done. Like Ted Lasso, they're getting 4 seasons, and that's it. 3 seasons, and that's it,
That
right?
was the plan at least.
That was the plan, but they never said that this is the last season. They
I
haven't said
can't
that yet.
remember if they've officially announced that.
But like the Umbrella Academy, they're getting their 4th season. We're done. Like it's like we're telling this story and that's it. And I'm cool with that. Yeah, I liked it. I wasn't like overly like wow blown away, but I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I just maybe for me I just was absorbing so much content while I was also trying to fit in Lord of the Rings, and it kind of just wore me down a bit. So maybe like I'll sit down when I have a block and go through Lord of the Rings, go through Rings of Power again, just completely isolated from any other IP and see how I feel about it after that. It could change, honestly, it could change. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, but then again, I had that, I had House of the Dragon, I had She-Hulk, I had Andor. Like my brain's gonna be overstimulated with all this content, you know. So it wasn't a bad show at all. Like I said, casting phenomenal. The backdrops, yeah, the blue screen, it's a little awkward, but they do their best. But it's a very bright show. I can say that, very
Yeah.
bright
Yeah, we're
compared
not
to.
worried about not being able to see what the fuck happens like House of the Dragon.
We had the discussion about the outdoor episode, like what the
Yeah, they're
fuck,
not
but
editing this on a source monitor to
Yeah.
be
yeah,
nearly pure black.
yeah,
I remember that. And actually, if you go back to the Two Towers and you
uh-huh,
look at that and how, like, I saw a comparison because I'd seen something about how that episode of House of Dragons was just you couldn't see anything.
yeah,
um you go to there was somebody who posted a video talking about the Two Towers and how, yes, it's nighttime, but you could see everything was like, you could see the army even if it was just the torches moving. Like, you could see that, you could see the rain dripping down everybody's face, and like, and something that in the special features that you brought that was brought up about that, somebody asked Peter Jackson, where's all this light coming from? And Peter Jackson's response was the same place that the music comes from. It's like, this is a movie. You don't have it, like, it's not about being realistic all the time. It's about getting the right tone and the right vibe. And like, just thinking about like how House of Dragons, like, you couldn't see anything. Like, I don't know. I didn't watch it. Is that what the tone of that was? Or was it just like
Yeah, they were just
they
going
just
for we
messed
want it
up?
to be perfectly realistic, and I'm like, well, it's not
yeah,
realistic to have a monitor that's $30,000 to be what you expect everyone to watch the show on.
yeah. That's
Right.
the thing. Like with Game of Thrones,
And it was
the
not the
battle.
director's first time. That was the
No,
second time he's done it.
yep. So the first time though, the whole point of that was you could only see slight movement, and that was even with the best TV because it's supposed to make you afraid of hearing and seeing things, right? The only problem with that is the casual TV watchers like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I don't care about the artistic approach here, right? Same thing in this episode of House of the Dragon, where completely, if you've been outside right at dusk, you know, before the sun, you know, before the moonlight really shines enough to like, you know, for you to see things, you have this kind of this gray look when you're looking around. That was the mindset here. The only problem with it is that you have action going on while that's happening, and it's like people are just they're trying really hard to focus, and if you don't have a good TV or you don't have your TV calibrated, just like the battle in Game of Thrones, you're going to not really it's going to bother you because it's like you're straining to kind of catch what's going on. And I think that's what pissed off a lot of people there. And you know, like I said, this director, he's 0 for 2 now with this whole thing, this approach, and it's like, did we really have to do that? Like, really? Or maybe he just was fucking lazy.
I don't know, but
Maybe.
Yeah. What does the
regardless,
director of photography think of it?
yeah, I'm glad Rings of Power doesn't have any of those issues.
No, they don't. They
That
Yeah.
it
don't.
was a quite good to look at show.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
For me, I think it was. I would probably like. So the two reviews so far are 2 thumbs up from Chris, and it's not bad from Fusion.
It's a thumb and a half. I'm gonna say a thumb and a half.
Okay,
Fair.
Not down, like a thumb and a half, just because, like I said, maybe I need to just sit down and dedicate just watching this on its own, isolated watching it, and maybe that'll change a few things that I
Yeah.
really probably didn't embrace it like I did, like because I love the original trilogy, and I don't think The Hobbit's that bad. You know, I think it's not bad, and I've read the books, you know, all of them, man. Yeah,
those
I
movies
was
are
really
dog
looking
shit.
at them. Yeah.
Ugh.
I would say
Just
The Hobbit, the first Hobbit film's not that bad.
it should have just been. If it was just one movie, it'd have been
It should.
fine.
Yeah.
But why the fuck was it 3?
The Desolation
Because
of Smog.
WB.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They really took that second film, or they said we're gonna get a third film out of it. It's like, no, you could have just put that shit in the second film and been
Well,
done
yeah.
with it.
Well, Peter Jackson said, I sure, I'll make a Hobbit movie," and they were like, "No, make 3."
Yeah,
And that's when he was like,
I don't know what to
and then
do.
he swore off. He
yeah,
swore off working on Lord of the Rings ever again because
yeah.
Yeah, they just
He
destroyed him physically.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it pained him to watch them inject like adrenaline into Christopher. Was it Christopher Lee? Lee?
Yeah, Christopher Lee.
He was like 91 when they were filming
Yeah.
the films. Oh my gosh. I'm sure they were like just injecting him with adrenaline and filling him full of caffeine to get him up there so he doesn't like fall asleep in a scene, you know? Because there's I mean he
He
wasn't
wasn't in
that
it much.
he wasn't in it much, but his scenes like I think people were like, oh, he looks great for 91. I was like, ah man, I kind of feel bad for the guy. I know he wants to do it, but it just he looks like he's just not able, like physically he's having a hard time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but oh, the first film wasn't bad. The first film wasn't bad. This, I'm gonna say this. This show is much better than that trilogy. Leaps
Agreed.
and bounds.
I don't
Leaps
think
I
and
it
bounds.
is
agree.
on the
Yeah.
level of the trilogy, of course, because very few
No.
franchises even come close. I think it's one of the
No.
best trilogies, if not the best trilogy ever made. So I would say it's got a good foundation. Like Chris said, episode 6 on, it becomes appointment television for me. You know, like I was
Yeah.
be like, hey, when does it release on Prime and when can I watch it? So it's been a bit since I've watched a show like that, at least on Prime. Last being The Expanse for me, which was just appointment television. Like holy shit, and it was on GMT, so it would drop at 6 p.m. on Thursdays instead of midnight on Friday. But yeah, like that was the one where like they finally take a stand. They drop the tower, right, Chris?
Oh,
Yeah, it's episode 6, where the orcs
yes,
and like
yes, yes,
that all
yes.
kind of comes to a head.
And then the end is
Yeah.
the turn, the real turn.
hmm
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then yeah, like once all that happens, it's like, yep, it's not quite a sprint to the finish, but it's much more, just like, man, I really want to see what happens next, and it's
Mhm.
the constant unfolding of the story, which I really appreciated. And like to Fusion's point, Bear McCreary did an excellent job with the music. It's
Yep.
fantastic. Maybe not quite on the level of that was Howard Shore that did the originals, right?
I believe
Yes.
so.
I mean, that was just again just standout best music in fantasy, right? Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
So this isn't quite that, but Ben McCreary is fantastic. Like I just now somehow I missed this. His original Battlestar stuff's on Spotify now. It wasn't for like 15 years. For like since the existence of the show up until 2021, you couldn't get the Battlestar Galactica music off anything but YouTube, which is fucking
Ooh.
crazy to me because the music in that show is incredible, and been doing composing for literally forever, and just that some of his best work wasn't on Spotify. It's crazy, but now it is. So I have some bunch of new stuff in my soundtrack playlist.
Nice.
And speaking of, you should. Oh man, I've been fighting the urge to just start Battlestar Galactica again.
Oh boy.
It's such a good show, man. Oh my god, it was so good.
There's beats.
I have the Blu-ray since you can only get it on Peacock, the premium tier. So I've been like, oh, I could just pop in the Blu-rays.
That's one of those where it's like the original came out when I was a kid and it was really bad. It was a
It was
really
very
bad.
schlocky.
Yeah. And then they did this version of it on Sci-Fi, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah,
This is
Ronald
much
D. Moore
better.
knows what the fuck he's
Like,
doing, and I wish he'd
yes.
get another Star Trek show
Oh man.
because he did the best of Deep Space Nine was him, and then he moved right into Battlestar Galactica, and it was one of the greatest sci-fi shows of all time.
Yep.
And I'm in the middle of my Deep Space Nine rewatch too. I'm up to season 6 when things fucking kick off with the Dominion War. Oh, God. Not to turn this into a Star Trek podcast, but we should totally do one sooner than later. So now time to get into some spoilers for Rings of Power. As we've been talking about this for 20 minutes without getting into any spoilers, really taking our time here with Rings of Power, much like the show. So, Chris, you mentioned that it feels very Tolkien, but I do have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, I think it's kind of telling that they don't have all the rights to everything.
Yes.
They didn't. Was it the Silmarillion? They didn't actually have the rights to.
They don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, so they're like picking and choosing, but making their own real story around it.
Yeah. So obviously
I
they're
think-
changing the
yeah.
timeline a little bit. The Elven rings came first.
Yep.
Not the other way around. Unless we're
Technically,
saying that
isn't that-
Sauron maybe made those rings years ago
So
and just hasn't given them yet.
Are you saying about the 9 rings of men, the
Yeah.
7 rings to the dwarven lords? So I literally started the Fellowship of the Ring, and
Yeah, the movies don't
yeah, it
say that that's how it happened, but the books do.
No, yeah,
the books do. Okay.
Yes, the books
Um,
are.
I,
They were made. Celebrimbor realized, oh shit, that was Sauron. Fuck, and then made the Elven rings completely separate, and Sauron didn't touch them, which is
gotcha.
why they were
Okay.
spared from his corruption, because only the elves made them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, in that case, like I think it's very interesting how they brought in the Elven rings into this story, then making it about preserving the Elven race um, in Middle Earth.
sure.
Therefore, giving those rings a purpose. Um, but then, like even if you go out of the books and you go back to the movies, in the movie, Galadriel's opening speech talks about how the rings were made, and then Sauron made one more ring that would go over all of the other ones.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's kind of what they're doing. They're trying to follow that original speech from Galadriel and just say, okay, the movies are the source material that we're taking from. And then when it comes to the Silmarillion and all that stuff, we don't have the rights to it, but we can pick and choose little things to make our own story out of it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the big piece from the Silmarillion is that Galadriel was a warrior previously,
yes.
and that like that was a big thing that they touch on in the first episode of Rings of Power, because
Hmm.
that what there it wasn't really big in the Silmarillion, but it's a small little piece that tells you like her backstory in the book. Yeah.
Right, right. So yeah, it's definitely really interesting. I did not think that the first season was actually going to end with rings being made. Um, but I do love, and then again, we're in spoiler territory. I love in that last confrontation between who we now know is Sauron and Galadriel.
Mhm.
Um, Sauron's doing his whole speech, and he talks to her and says together, like his whole speech is about how together they can rule um and bring balance or
to the
whatever to
Force.
everything. Yeah, pretty much. But he even says, what is the line that Galadriel says when she's like
A ruler as great
drawn
and
to
as
the
terrible as
power?
the sea.
Yeah, the uh I'll be as terrible as and beautiful as the dawn. And they brought lines from that whole thing that she says, that Kate Blanchett's Galadriel says in Fellowship of the Rings,
Hmm.
and they bring it to how Sauron is trying to manipulate her, which then plays to what Galadriel says in the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, where she says, and they were all of them deceived by Sauron.
Mhm.
Like, this is playing the way that they ended this relationship between the two of them at this season is them saying, this is the beginning of Sauron's deception. This is the plant, the seed that he has planted in Galadriel that he will now plant in other people. And that seed is enough to stick with somebody for 2,500 years. And she remembers being as terrible and beautiful as the dawn when she sees that ring from that person and is drawn to it. Like, I think that specifically shows the power that Sauron has in this moment. And I think that going forward is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out with him now getting back to the Southlands and getting back to Mordor.
So,
Yeah.
Fusion, what were you thinking about? You said you mentioned its pacing, and I believe a few episodes ago of the show, this show, we mentioned, like it's predictable, but that's kind of Tolkien. Like he's not in
Yeah.
it for the mystery. It's very much black and white. It is good versus evil, right? Like what you
Yeah.
see on its face is more or less what you're getting. Like, and I mentioned, like, oh, 100% the stranger's a good guy, 100% Halbrand's the bad guy. It's not a swerve, it's a telegraph, and they're going to follow through on the telegraph because that's how
Yeah.
Tolkien wrote. Like, he wasn't in there like, oh, see this guy, I bet he's a bad guy, and then all of a sudden he's a good guy. Like, it was very much, wink and nod, this is where we're going, and then they go there. And the show did the same thing, but the pacing wise, like, did it pick up for you at any point? Like, what were some other? Did you have any other like sticking points beyond that?
No. I mean, just it's the one thing that Chris loves about Lord of the Rings, that style of pacing. It's just really not my cup of tea. Like that's not really like me. And that's like there's nothing like I'm not saying that's what made it a bad show, but for me it's just like okay, when I'm thinking about like this type of science fiction and mythical storytelling, I'm used to a little faster pace. Now when I say that, to me, when I compare the Rings of Power to the original trilogy, the trilogy feels like even Fellowship, which is a slower movie, felt like the pace is a little faster. That obviously there's a reason why because we have a bunch of episodes. We're gonna have multiple seasons to tell the story till we get to the very end, which is the battle, right, where Isildur takes the ring and he defeats Sauron, right? We're good. That's the big payoff of this show to get to that point. Okay, that's fine. I just felt like for me, I think that there was maybe a little more table setting, but where this differs from like a House of the Dragon in that there's different threads here, but there's not as many like they are for House of the Dragon. Which in like if you think about Game of Thrones, that was a big problem with it was there's so many threads going on concurrently that it can get overwhelming for a show like that. House of Dragons tightened it up a bit. This is a lot tighter. Where I think for me, like for the whole Durin and Elrond story, that like their little friendship, that's been a refreshing spin of things because you get this whole I guess you could say a human side of Elrond, like just more of a personable side of Elrond, which I really liked. But like you and I talked about this in the very beginning after the first couple episodes, Warburg, was that obviously we knew this because of if you read like before the show was released, that a big chunk of this is Elrond's journey to where he is by the time the trilogy comes around. He's going to see a lot, obviously going to be through the battle and all of that and help Isildur, defeat Sauron. But to get there, he becomes a different person. And I'm very interested to see like where that major swerve, like not swerve, but shift in character is going to take place. Because are we going to do it towards the back end of the production of the show, or are we going to do it just as we're telling? We feel like there's the right moment to do it. Like I'm sure they have this all crafted out, and the pacing isn't awful. It's a little slower, but hey, for all I know, season two could be much faster paced because we've kind of have our big reveals. We've set the table. Let's do this. Like Chris said, he didn't expect the rings to be the rings to be crafted at the end of the season. Neither did I. I didn't think that was going to happen. Like I didn't think that we were going to
Yeah.
fit that in at this point. I'm like, okay, well, that's probably something coming in season two and season three. Like, no, we're starting here. Okay, and I think you mentioned this Warburg, the idea of like when the Istars show up, it's like okay, the way it's presented is at the end of the second age into the third age, it's like okay, well that we can be a little looser with that with the storytelling here
Well, that
on the
and
show.
technically Sauron's revealed, so like the third age just started,
Started right,
more or
so
less. Like we're within, like within that kind of like we got so up in our like there's the battle before Yavin, and then
yep,
after
and then
Yavin,
after
like
Yavin,
we're right in that kind of like nebulous like where are we in the timeline? Because in the canon, it's right when Sauron loses the ring, right?
yep,
That's when the third age starts, like the new age. So we're basically right at the end of the second age, and I think they when Chris, do you remember when the wizards originally do show up in the lore? Is it before or after
No,
Sauron is revealed? I thought it was after.
I don't remember. I know from watching the movie
Not counting the blue wizards who were like before.
that
yeah,
they're in the third age in the first movie and it's 1200 something. So we would be in the second age because there would have been 1300 years between uh Sauron losing the ring and the Third Age even starting. So there's a long while.
Yeah.
So this might be the beginning of the Second Age.
No,
No.
this
Because
the third age starts when Sauron loses the ring.
Yeah.
When his hold is broken over Middle Earth, supposedly.
But we don't know how long these. If they go 5
The
seasons,
year
we don't
1300,
know.
that's the Shire year.
Yeah.
oh, that you're right.
Yeah, which is not the same as
you're
the
right.
like. Yeah, I literally
You're
just
right.
read the foreword of Fellowship
No,
of the
you're
Ring,
totally right.
which is why I remember that.
I forgot that part of the quote.
Yeah, yeah, they have like an extra like it's like 1600 years plus because they didn't start their
Yeah,
reckoning
yeah.
until 1600 years after the start of the Third Age, something like that.
Now we
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
how long these 5 seasons. If they go 5 seasons, how long this is going to take? Like in terms of timeline, this could be a year. This could be 6 months.
I think it's
Like,
going to be like 10 years
I've
because
got to
Isildur's
think
too
that it's going to
young.
be. Yes, Isildur is way too young.
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
We do have to go through the fall of the Dwarven kingdoms.
Yep,
Yep.
which is going to
Um,
suck because Durin's
Yep.
awesome.
Yes.
Durin is awesome. However, I am so excited for a Balrog. The moment I heard in the preamble them
Well,
talk
that's
about
not for
Morgoth,
many hundreds of years though, because that kingdom doesn't fall. It falls during Gimli's lifetime because his cousin is
right.
Balin, who
You're
was the
right.
king of Khazad-dûm.
You're right. You're right about Moria. That's true.
Yeah.
However, they have already they've already teased a Balrog.
Yep.
And when they go into Moria, Gandalf didn't really even know that the Balrog was still around. Like it was a surprise to him that a Balrog was even around. So you have to think, is the mountain in which Durin is in, is that Moria? Is that
That's
the cave
that's
systems of
Khazad-dûm.
Moria? Is it Khazad-dûm?
Yeah, that's the city
Oh,
name.
okay. Oh, I didn't notice that. I need to rewatch
I think
it.
there's a shot that's even the three doors where Gandalf's, like follow your nose. I think that's a shot, like one of the king walks through one of the doors.
Oh, and see, that's also why I think that the dude has to be Gandalf,
Yeah.
because at the end of the
And he's
end
like
of
to
the
follow your
show,
nose. That
he's
they're
like
lamp
the-
shading it so hard.
yeah.
And again, to go back
Yeah.
to Tolkien, what you see on the page is what you're getting. Like
right.
he hated allegory, like with a passion. It's in the foreword. He's like, I hated allegorical storytelling. Stop telling people what the fuck the meaning of my book was. Like he
Yeah.
hated it. Like so, 100% that's Gandalf. And again, it fits with the lore because technically Gandalf was like the Valar, the Maiar. Who are the
Maiar.
gods?
The Valar are the gods, I
Yeah.
believe, and then the
Yes, and the
Maiar are
Maiar
like
are
the
the
wizards.
wizards.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he was the Valar's first choice to be like the lead,
Yeah.
the emissary towards the world of men. But he was just like, I'm not really feeling it. Because in the lore, I think it's because he was like he didn't feel like he was worthy of the role, which is why they turned to Sauron. But in my head, my canon, yeah, he just like getting high too much. Because like he helped the hobbits find some long bottom leaf and was like, man, that shit makes me feel real good.
I'm just gonna hang out here for a little while.
Yeah, like I'm
guys.
good. I found my place in the world. I'm good. You can do whatever the fuck you want, Saruman. I don't care until you fuck with me, and then I'll kill
Their
you.
chosen one was a hippie. I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. And then that whole thing kicks off. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if each season maybe we're going to get introduced to a new wizard in some way. Especially maybe at the end of season 2
Maybe.
we see our next one when he finally gets to that land and like remembers who he is and becomes like the Gandalf we know. Is Saruman already going to be there?
What about Radagast the Brown?
Yeah. Or do we
With
meet
his-
the
with
Blue
his-
Wizards? Like, are they there? Because they're a Tolkien reference we've
true.
never explored in any
Yeah.
medium. Have they been explored? Like, but they're in the lore multiple times. So it's like, are they like gonna like teach the new wizards how to like exist in this world? How to use their power and craft their staffs and all that kind of stuff? Is that who's gonna teach them? That'd be weird,
Interesting.
but interesting. I think that'd be cool. That'd be an interesting part of the lore to explore. How much more do we get with the hobbits? Like, are we going to get them forming and meeting the other? Because the Harfoots, again, in the lore are ones like not subspecies, but like sect, I guess is maybe the right word, of hobbits. Then there's like
Yeah.
the river folk who were like the Smeagol, what we see in, Return of the King, that intro. He was one of the river folk who
Yep.
were another like sect of what would become hobbits.
Yep.
And then there's a third one, which I'm blanking on the name. I think that they would be more like the Tooks, because these guys are more like the Brandy Bucks that we've already met. And then they're all going to eventually settle in the Shire. Like, are we going to follow them the entire time? That'd be bizarre.
You mean like the
the Harfoots that we see.
the grouping that isn't going off with Gandalf?
Yeah, like, are we going to see them
or are you
again?
still going to follow them?
Or is she going to end up back with them and they've settled in the Shire?
I definitely do think that this is going to be the Shire folk, like the beginning of the Shire folk.
With the Harfoot.
Yeah, they're going to say we're done migrating. This is where we.
Yes, I think that that's going to happen. It just makes sense, just because, like, why would Gandalf later in life know to come there for Bilbo or whatever? Like, it just makes sense that these would be the group that would start the Shire, and then he would return with Nori, and they would actually like be setting it up and everything. But yeah, that's interesting. I honestly thought that there would be.
It just occurred to me. They
Huh?
could set it up where it's going through the Shire. Literally, everyone goes to the Grey Havens because that's on the west side of the Shire. So they'd have to literally pass through the Shire to get to the Grey Havens, to the ships, across the sea. And that's when everyone realized, like all the elves are like, "Oh, hey, cool, weird Hobbit people," and then they fuck off. But Gandalf's like, "Hey, I remember these guys." Like, it's just decides to stick around. Because, yeah, like in the lore, they're like, yeah, they were really so close. Like, they could see the Grey Havens from the Shire, and they were just they were like, nah, we don't want to deal with that shit. Like, we're good. Like, their entire species was just farm shit, and we're good.
They had a knack for the brewing of ale and the smoking of pipeweed.
Exactly. Sounds like my kind of people.
And I'm also happy that they were able to sneak in a big chunk early on about Numenor, because because like for me, that's, I know Tolkien really took a lot from at the story of Atlantis, to kind of create this mythos around Numenor, and I really hope that we get some more. Obviously, we're going to get some more here in season 2.
Well, we have to, because we have to get the fall of Numenor.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, we really have to talk about what happened with Numenor, like how it just really literally fell off the map, because it literally was put on the map at some point. Is it going to be completely pulled off the map?
I mean, you have to think they've had this the symbology of the tree already in Numenor, which is foreshadowing the White Tree of Gondor, which technically before the end of this whole battle they have to have already established Gondor, because it's oh my goodness, what's Isildur's dad's name? Yeah, Elendil. Elendil is the king of Gondor. So like there's so much still to set up. Like, it's like this has to go at least a decade or two worth of time span, just because you have to have the fall of Numenor, and then you have to have the buildup of Gondor. Which I'm sure
and the Numenorians live a long time, so it could be 50 years.
Yeah, it could be a long time. It could literally be like they set it up with Elendil being like, I want to finish this. I need to go back and finish this kind of deal. Like, that makes sense as to why they set up Gondor where they set up Gondor, right next to Mordor, ready to battle at a moment's notice, because Elendil needs to finish it. Technically, now I'm wondering if they're gonna find Isildur before they come back for that.
I think Isildur is
next thing
either
is gonna be
mid-season or end of season, getting back to his people, right as it all goes to shit in Numenor. And that's what kind of maybe gives Elendil the strength to be like, you know what? We can leave. Like, we don't need to look back to people that like don't want to look forward. Because he's got his son back, and his hopes renewed in the old ways, and they
Right.
settle in Middle Earth. Because they also got to establish then the Northern Kingdoms too, which is a
Yep.
whole
Right.
that's fucking crazy. I wish I could ask
A
James.
lot.
Because when he finally gets around to Rings of Power, I need to hash things out with him too. Because I mean, he's like Chris. I know you like Tolkien. He is maybe the biggest Tolkien nerd I've ever met.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
got like
I
art.
have
He has like he has the Lord of the Rings like art book, has coffee table stuff. Like he is fucking into that lore.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like I like the movies. I'm not a reader, so I don't know
they're good books too.
Yeah.
I've read them 3 times. I'm in the middle of rereading the trilogy again.
Yeah, I've tried. I can't.
It is a different. It
Um,
is a different type of read because he
Yeah.
didn't write them as a traditional fantasy novel.
Right.
He
I
wrote
mean,
them
but
as
the
more
thing is, like,
backstory. He wrote them as backstory for his fantasy novel, which was The Hobbit.
The Hobbit. Yep.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're like fucking dense. Like, hey, this happened in this year. This guy wrote a book that happened in that year talking about this subject. Anyway, back to the story. Like, it's very, very much like footnotes in the middle of the text kind of stories.
Yeah. But yeah, like I know people who are like they could recite the Silmarillion to me. Like if I have a Lord of the Rings questions, I know people that I can go to. Or I just look up Stephen Colbert's Lord of the Rings
There you
on
go.
YouTube or something, because that man
Yeah,
knows
that's good. I
everything.
almost guarantee you that's going to be his retirement project. It's just a YouTube series about Tolkien.
I'm here for it.
Like him just
I'm all
going through
here
number
for it.
one, reading the books. Number two, I want like deep lore dives. I want video essays from Stephen Colbert just about Tolkien. No jokes,
My
just him
goodness. I
talking
would
about Tolkien.
I would watch that day in and day out.
It's great. Like I don't even the ones where he's just talking to people. They're not
Mhm.
making jokes. They're not doing monologues. He's just asking legitimate nerd questions. The dude's awesome.
Yeah, he's so articulate. Like he's enjoyable to just listen to speak. Like I don't care what he's saying.
Like I
I'll listen
imagine
to
they're
it.
gonna do 100-year retrospective. Like once it actually hits your. When did The Hobbit
Sure.
get published?
9.
It was in the 20s, right? Or was it early 30s?
I think it's either late 20s. I want to say like
37?
20
1937.
Oh,
1937.
All right, so in 15 years, we're coming up on 100 years of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
If
Jeez.
he's, still wanting to do stuff professionally by then, you got to imagine he's like, "Hey, can you host the 100th year special for Tolkien?" Like, you
Oh,
got to
yeah.
like that's gonna happen at some point, because the guy is like the biggest Tolkien head around.
Oh yeah, I love watching the James Franco thinks he knows more about Tolkien than him, so he like asks him this question that like I wouldn't even understand what it means, and Stephen Colbert is just like, yeah, like he says it like it's a 2+2 question,
Yeah,
like it's ridiculous. I love that man.
yeah, he's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of fantastic, I think it's time we change gears now that we're over an hour into the show
Yep.
and finally talk about She-Hulk a little bit. The She-Hulk season 1 done. Fusion, let's go start with you first this time. What did you think of She-Hulk season 1?
Probably one of my favorite MCU TV shows. I know we coming off of Moon Knight saying that was good, off of Miss Marvel being really fun. This one had a lot to. When I think about the artistic side of it, like the writing, the storytelling, the fan service, the cameos, fitting in and not so fitting in into the MCU, taking chances, which was a really big thing here, especially in the finale, completely different from anything you and I said they really need to stick the landing because based off of the penultimate episode, but like it was a very different thing. And when I was watching it, I was kind of taken aback and I had to really go back and watch it again because I was like, my mind's processing this differently. And I went back and I'm like, no, I enjoyed it, but like I was first time, I think it was just a little jarring for the finale. But when I really think back about it, tons of cameos, expanded the MCU, breaking the fourth wall, which is in line with so much of it was in line with the Dan Slott comic. Like this is probably one of my favorite shows. Like Loki is still number one just because that was an amazing first season, and I can't wait for season two. But this is right up there because man, like they knocked it out of the park in terms of like being relevant, being socially relevant, really hitting the nail on the head on like just women's struggles in just the world we live in, on top of being a superhero, on top of being kind of self-aware with everything. I just so many there's so many good things, like so many swings and hits, and there were very few misses for me in this show. Whereas when I really think about Miss Marvel, there's a lot of hits there, but there were some misses, not gonna lie. And obviously like Falcon and Winter Soldier, a lot of misses, but it wasn't a bad show, but there's a lot there I didn't like. WandaVision, same thing. But like this one of my favorite shows, man. I really, really enjoy it. Tatiana, I always forget her last name.
Maslany.
Maslany.
I always forget her first name, so we work well together.
No, I'll say Tatiana and point at you, and you say
Maslany.
Maslany. Tatiana Maslany. She was phenomenal in the show. I forget like her supporting cast around her, but Mark Ruffalo, the snippets we got from him. Emil Blonsky was hilarious. Charlie Cox, obviously phenomenal cameos, plural. It does create a bit of an issue at the end of it because it's like going forward, what does that do for her and him? Because if they're an item now, he's an Echo next year. I'm very curious if they're going to have her make a cameo. Is it the TV show Jen that's kind of like Deadpool-esque in terms of like very self-aware, or is it a very kind of in line because Echo may be more of a serious tone story? Don't know. Honestly, don't really care at this point because I really like I had fun with this one. I had a lot of fun. That's what I'm going to say. I had a lot of fun with this show, from start to finish.
Agreed. Chris, what were your thoughts?
I can't really disagree with anything there. This was a fun show from beginning to end. The end, the way that I say it is, the end was dissatisfying in the most satisfying way. Like it was it was like there was no real resolution or climax or anything, but that's what the show was, and it said, okay, yeah, there's no it literally came out and told you there's no climax, there's no resolution here. This is how we're doing it. Like this is a show about a woman in the workplace who has superpowers. It doesn't always end with a battle. Like that's not a real person thing. Like her problems are not superhero related. They are human being related. So we're going to end them in a human being related way. Like it was dissatisfying, but I was smiling through the entire part of it. Like it was fantastic. I loved it. It made me really excited to see if they ever do her and Deadpool on the screen together. What is that going to be? Because that would be incredible. How many walls are there going to be that are broken? In
Like,
a
just
single
imagine
scene?
Ryan Reynolds like acting out him realizing she can see him talk to the camera.
Yeah.
Like,
What if?
Or better yet, they pan and there's a camera in front of them.
yeah,
Like completely just break the wall down.
I want to see them.
like he's just messing with the camera to mess with the shot, and then nobody notices. But then he just sees Jen look over, like, leave the cameraman the fuck alone.
And he's
And they
like, wait,
move
you
on.
saw that?
I
Wait,
want to watch them have a battle on the Disney Plus screen.
yes.
To fight
my
each other on
God.
the Disney Plus screen.
Okay,
That would be incredible.
that part was
gag
hilarious.
was
That was it. That was awesome. I loved that.
That was like a next level of creativity and storytelling
Yeah.
that like I wasn't expecting. I'm like
you can
I was
only pull it
expecting her to get
once,
somewhere.
but
Yep,
damn,
that's
was it
that's
good.
Yeah.
That got me very much like if you've ever it's my favorite game. If you've ever played Arkham Asylum, there's a
Okay.
part where in the game it does this whole like glitchiness, and then it like shuts off, and then it turns back on immediately to the first shot of the first cutscene of the game. And when I first saw that, I was like, did I just lose all of my progress? And then you realize that it's reversed things, so that like the Joker's you're playing as the Joker and whatnot. And it was like, oh, this is cool now. And so like seeing that, I was like, what just happened? And then she punches through. I'm like, this is incredible. I love this. And so like they wrote it, while it might not be the most accurate to any type of law show ever, it's hilarious. It was meant to be a comedy. It was not meant to be a superhero show.
It's a
Like,
lawyer show, like saying Ted Lasso is a soccer show.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was. I agree. It is definitely. I do agree that Loki is the best one, and this is probably a close second. Yeah, it was just. It was. This was one of those shows that was like, is it Thursday yet? Is it Thursday yet? Is it Thursday yet? Because I just wanted to watch the show.
Agreed. I still think it was a big miss not to have actual Kevin Feige voice Kevin. Come on. If you're going to go meta, go fucking meta. Like, unless he's not comfortable doing it. Might as well do it. You're going to robot him voice anyway. You might as well actually have him robot his voice. That'd have been awesome. That'd have taken the joke so much further, because then the internet would have been like, hey, who voiced that robot? Oh my god, it was actually Kevin Feige.
Okay,
like,
so to be fair, I thought they were going to pull a completely different, go in a different direction, and have like Seth Rogen be Kevin. Like he just sits down, I am Kevin, you know.
Oh, be a different actor.
Yeah, just to be a different actor. And she's like, you're Kevin? He's like, yeah, I'm Kevin. I'm in charge. Like,
yeah, I started on the X-Men movies. Yeah,
and just kind of made my way
20
through
years
all of
ago.
it. I mean, hey, look, I love that fact that she broke the wall, and like you said, how many walls can be broken? Well, technically, the record is 16 walls by Deadpool. So let's see if she can top that. So
Yeah, fourth wall break inside of a fourth
inside
wall
a
break.
fourth wall break, that's like 16 walls.
I loved when Kevin was just like, "Can you switch back? This is really expensive."
Good tips.
Yeah, just do it off camera.
I was like, okay,
Just do it off camera.
yeah. Are you doing no? Yeah, we're good.
And then her sitting down, like, are you sitting down? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Like,
Yeah, it's so good.
I wish she would have mentioned one thing. I wish she also should have complained about. Why does Marvel kill all their villains? Like all the good ones, right?
Yeah.
Like all the ones that like, this is how you build that recurring world. Why are all the good, like all the people that have dad villains? Why are all their dads dead? Like, come on.
Neil Blonsky's still alive.
Yeah, but he's not even a bad guy anymore.
No.
Oh, and that reminds me, I saw a tweet. I think it was Eric Goldman who was retweeting someone who was like, "Wait a minute, we need a Kamar-Taj show because literally everyone's there again." And if they could talk Sony into giving them Ned, holy fuck,
Madison.
Yeah, because like have her just be there. She doesn't have to do magic. She's just there.
Well, hold on, because remember, Madison did sell her soul to.
She sold her soul, right? So she's in Kamar-Taj to like stay safe.
Exactly.
Because Wong's like, no one's fucking with my friend.
Yeah, exactly. She can't leave Kamar-Taj, and that could be like a short where she's like, I want to go shopping. Like, I can't do this. And he's like, no, this Kamar-Taj.
Her and Wong go to the Mall of America. Yes, just portaling around the various different levels.
That would be the joke. She's like, but I want to go shopping. Is there anywhere that like we have a spell protected? And it shows Mall of America, and they walk through.
Yeah, like say Minneapolis was on like an old native like mystical site or something.
Indian burial ground. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Well, because there were major Native American tribes along the Mississippi, like so that wouldn't be the craziest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that would be really, really cool. And that's something I hope they like kind of realize they wrote themselves into in a good way. Like, you just wrote yourself a really fun opportunity for at least a one-off, like a 20-minute short.
Right.
Well, people are now demanding more Madison and Wongers. Like they're demanding.
Oh
it.
yeah.
And and it's a different show they're into every time. Like Breaking Bad, Justified, The Shield, or The Wire, right? Like it's always a different show. Not just The Sopranos.
Anywhere that Wong goes with a ring, Madison's right behind him with like a little drink or whatever, and is just like whining about something that pulls him back out of the scene, kind of deal.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
the vodka with the yak milk. The scene at the end, the
Yes.
end credit scene, that was
Yeah.
fucking hilarious. Just oh god.
Like I want a
It,
scene of Doctor Strange in whatever the third movie turns out to be, walking into like Wong's room, and it's just I don't want to be the Sorcerer Supreme anymore. I just want to watch TV. And like, and then they sit down, get drunk, and watch movies together. That'd be awesome.
Oh man.
'Cause that was such an like unexpectedly great thing about this show. Because there was a lot of
Yeah.
unexpectedly great things. Like
Yeah.
so how much Wong we got, did not expect
Yep.
that. You know,
Mhm.
like how much Daredevil we got for him showing up late in the season. Got a fair amount actually. Like
exactly.
not just one-off cameos.
Yeah,
Like it
he got
was
his spotlight.
substantial parts, you know, in one episode and a decent sized cameo in the next. Like that's cool. And we
And
got
like
the
the
Scar
end of the
stuff.
show promised more of him.
Yeah, we
Well,
get
not only
more.
not only that, but they established that it wasn't just like a one-time hookup. Like there's a
Right.
relationship there. So it's like I said, okay, is she making a cameo or they're gonna reference her in Echo? Like how like I get it. Like by the time we get to Born Again, we could just say, oh, they broke up or whatever, but because it'll be a year or two later. But like obviously I was shocked because I thought, okay, is this gonna be like a mentorship episode? But then, the hookup, whatever, go read her comic and you'll get how she operates, and that's fine. Like no complaints there. But I didn't think that they were going to get as
Well,
emotionally
nobody gets to
connected
complain
to.
about hookup culture with Matt Murdock because the guy was with like 4 people in his own
Yeah.
show.
Well, no, not even the show. In the comics,
Oh, in the comics, it's everywhere. It's all the time.
Matt and Tony hook up with everything and everyone. Okay,
Yeah,
those two
like
are all over the
it's
place.
nuts.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, just in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they have to tell you Tony and Gamora just decide they're going to hook up, Like, it's just like, because he's Tony Stark, he's like, I want to experience aliens for the first time. Like, it's just weird, but whatever. So, Matt Murdock and Tony Stark, yeah, whatever. But no one can go back and say anything about Jen Walters' character because she's just living her life however she wants to in the comic. That's what they've translated over here in the TV show, and they do a good job of that. And like you and I talked about it last episode about the slut shaming stuff, in the penultimate episode, like that's just the revenge porn stuff. You're just like, for me, like as a guy, I can never be in that situation, but I can see how jarring it is, and like, oh man, she just exploded. Like, do you fucking blame her? And then we get to this episode where it was just like we speeded up a little bit, and the house arrest, and then losing her job, and then deciding to go hang out with Blonsky and that whole thing. Like, there's just so many. When I really talk it through, for such a short, like what 40-minute episodes,
It is quite
so
brief
much
Yeah.
happens in this show when you think
without
about
being like a big fight.
yeah.
Right.
And
yeah.
I had a point that I wrote down because I saw somebody being like, there's all these threads that didn't get resolved, and I'm like, have you ever watched a TV show? Like, unless it's a mini series that's firmly wrapping all of itself up, a la a Watchmen, there are other threads because it's an ongoing universe that they're going to pick back up.
Exactly.
Right. And it's
Like-
not like this is the only season that She-Hulk is going to get.
Right, like we know
No.
what's happening with the blood because we know the leaders in Cap 4.
Yep.
Right.
So what are you complaining
Right.
about?
And then, hey, we got introduced to Scar, the son of the Hulk.
So that's going to be a
So
thing.
We,
And I
we're
don't think we're
inching-
getting World War Hulk. I think we're getting Agents of Smash.
Okay, that's fair.
Because because the thing that tips me off there, no way Harrison Ford wants to do mocap, meaning we're gonna get full-time Red Hulk. No back and forth between him and Thunderbolt Ross.
No, he's just gonna get the visual face structure, and he's gonna do the voice of the Red Hulk.
And they maybe don't even have to have him do the voice. Because he's
Maybe
gonna,
not.
undergo a pretty radical transformation. You don't have to have him do the voice.
Sure.
Because it's
You could
probably
just get Mark Hamill to do Harrison Ford.
that would be so great.
Oh God.
It's Mark Hamill. It's Mark Hamill's voice, Harrison Ford's wait, wrong way. Hamill's voice, Ford's face.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that. That'd be just such a great joke. At the very least, somebody like Bad Liberating is going to do that exact joke. They're going to ask
Oh, yeah.
Hamill to come in and do lines.
Oh yeah.
For
sure.
I know you guys probably didn't watch it. What the Santa Clarita Diet? Did you guys ever watch?
Always
that
meant
show on
to,
Netflix?
because
Okay.
Timothy Oliphant's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just go ahead and say it's a zombie show, obviously, but there's a zombie, a guy that they kill and they behead, who becomes a living head, a zombie head, and it's Mal Reynolds and Firefly. I forget his name
Nathan
now.
Fillion?
Nathan Fillion. It's Nathan Fillion playing this head, right? For the first
Wow.
two. Here's the best part about it. He's replaced in season 3 by Alan Tudyk.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
And
That's
I love that
awesome.
relationship because then in Resident Alien, there's a talking squid, telepathic
yep,
squid. Alan Tudyk is the lead. Nathan Fillion is the squid.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they said Tudyk said that we found out that Fillion was leaving the Santa Clarita Diet, he was like, I want to take that role. Like I wanted just because people are going to automatically recognize. That's the first thing I recognize. Like my wife loved the show, and I'm watching. I'm like, holy shit, wasn't that Nathan Fillion? And she's like, what? She didn't even notice. I'm like, yeah, it's Alan Tudyk. Oh my god, this is so awesome. Like just the way that these guys just they interlace themselves with each other in their careers is just hilarious. But yeah. Man, like there's so much happens in this show for such a little, like for short episodes. Like you said, Warburg, though, there's not so much. We're not overburdened with action, and it's
Yeah, we're
more
not
more
like
just
having Jonathan Majors tell us about how time works, right?
yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
just, person trying to live life,
Yep.
Yeah.
but crazy shit happens, which is
Mhm.
essentially the concept of the show. And I thought for that, I think they really, of all the shows, sans for, like I said, maybe Loki, they most nailed what they were going for consistently.
Yeah.
Miss Marvel was close. The weird Pakistan half season swerve cutting out half of your regular cast, for me,
Yep.
that took me out of it. When all the stuff I wanted to watch was with the main cast that they left from. But She-Hulk, I think, did the best at staying consistent to what it wanted to be. Wasn't always the same week to week, but most shows of that nature aren't either. Like, they have a wedding episode. That's a very sitcom thing. That's part of the format. And I thought they nailed that part of it pretty well. Plus
I
adding
think they
in the
do. Yeah.
fourth wall breaking.
Yep. And I think they do a good job of not. It was a very smart and witty approach to making fun of the critics because they knew obviously ahead of time the type of people that they were going to get negative reviews and negative commentary from, and they knew how to snap back. And like so, while every Thursday this episode would come out, those type of idiots on the internet, those trolls, would start hitting the feed, and then the very next episode would counter them. It's like, but that was shot 3 or 4 months ago. Like, so they knew what was going to happen before it happened, which was like in society, which is something that I think
Which
was
is
really
basically how you could
smart.
tell women wrote the show.
Exactly. Like
They knew what was going to be said.
well, they can read men. They can read men on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
what can I tell you? Like, they knew exactly
Been a
how it
part of
was
their
going to happen.
professional lives since they started.
Yep. Like the wedding episode really opens up with her just to like, oh yeah, I got you with that Daredevil tease last week, huh? So anyway, this is a wedding episode. It's like, oh shit, they went there. I'm like, I can appreciate the art, And it wasn't pushing it too hard into your face, like we're going to do things different. It was no, like Chris said in the finale where she tells Kevin, no, we're not gonna follow the same MCU tropes. This is my show. We're going to do things my way. And I like how they executed that. It wasn't a thing where they knocked it out of the park, but I think it was a good fresh take on an MCU show, man.
And I want next season just to like things start getting really weird. I wanted to look up and go, don't make me go get to Kevin again. Like you don't have to pull that, pull the ripcord and go through the Disney thing again. But just to even have her like look up or look at the camera and be like, "Don't you make me." And then you see
Or
like
stop.
you see like a plane like right clouds, be like, "It's okay, we got this." And
Yeah.
and a countdown to a new scene, 3, 2, 1, and it cuts to a new scene, something like that.
Like she could just stop the Disney player and you just see the Disney controls at the bottom.
Yeah,
just
it
come up
opens
and
up like you think you moved your controller or something,
yeah.
and it's like, oh no, she's just rewinding. Let's redo this scene. They could play still with it some more, but I don't think you're gonna have anything that's as big of a shock as her punching out the Disney Plus like thumbnail and
And walking
jumping
them
through
in.
it. Like that was a huge moment,
Yeah.
which I thought they absolutely nailed.
I agree with that. I agree. It was a good first season, man.
Mhm.
I think this is another show that should. I know Loki's got a season 2. We don't know.
I feel,
Obviously,
and the
Falcon and Winter
format's
Soldier, we're
so
not getting.
great for season 2 because you got it's just a lawyer show.
Yep.
Like you could
Yep.
tell so many street level show things without it being like a Daredevil type show. Like just keep it light, keep it fun, and keep it on that lower key side of the MCU, And I mean, it's a franchise with 20 plus movies. You got plenty to mine. By the time they
Yeah.
get to a season 2, it'll be 30 plus movies. Like,
Well, here's a couple of things. Obviously, like the Mr. Immortal episode showed you that you can keep it very grounded and still introduce superpowered characters, right?
mhm.
And keep it a very grounded. Here's the other thing. If there was any show that really needs to address what the fuck we have a celestial sitting out there in the ocean, it's She-Hulk in season 2. Obviously, like a cruise ship takes another like there has to be a lawsuit that centers around the fact that we have a celestial like blocking shit like in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah,
Like
she
it's
sues the
like
Celestials or some
yeah,
shit like that.
something happens. Like there's an Eternal that's on back on Earth or something. There's one Eternal left, or like there has to be a story where you can address this fact, the celestial, the dreaming celestial. Like we have to, it hasn't been touched on in what 4 movies now. So it's like
Yeah, it's been lightly referenced, but that's it.
that's really it. And it would be it'd be awesome for her to be that show, like her show to be the show that the avenue to really bring it up and be like, hey, are we not going to talk about this thing that's out in the fucking ocean? Or like kind of like in Thor: Love and Thunder, how they turned turned New Asgard into a tourist attraction. It's like a rock climbing place for people, like Mount Everest or something stupid like that. And somebody wants to sue. Like, who do I sue? I fell off of the Dreaming Celestial. It's like, no, that's not a thing. Like, we can't do that.
Yeah, it's in
Like, just
international
it's a
waters.
reference.
Sorry,
Yeah,
shit
there's
out
a
of luck.
reference there. But there's so many things obviously lining up next year. If her show comes back, it won't be back until late 23
Oh,
if they
that
do
at the
that.
earliest, it'd be 2024.
Yeah, because we have what Moon Knight season 2 next year. What else do we have
Is
lined
that
up?
yeah given? I didn't
Echo.
know they were doing that.
Yeah, he's shooting it right now.
Okay,
He's
I
shooting
couldn't
it right
remember if
now.
that was confirmed.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, Oscar Isaac said they had already started pre-production. So they're shooting it right now. So Moon Knight season 2 is next year. Loki season 2 is next year. What else am I missing here, guys? There's another show that's coming out.
Echo.
Echo.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. I mean, it doesn't sound a lot, but 3 shows on top of Mandalorian, on top of Andor, like unless we're gonna start just skipping a year between show seasons to just kind of let all the content line up like that, it's gonna be interesting, man. How we look at the next couple years of MCU stuff.
It's gonna be, and I'm curious to see, especially as they get into their next phase in terms of like when they want to actually introduce the mutants and actually get into the Fantastic Four and really start building towards that next big event. How that all shakes out.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, hey, we've touched on the fact that they can exist in the background now. Mutants can through this
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it worked. So I'm cool. I'm very cool with how Miss Marvel and how She-Hulk have kind of laid a foundation for it, and then obviously the punchline of hey, can we get mutants already in her finale? Like there's a lot of groundwork left there for the X-Men, so it's not going to be shocking when it happens. And then we can
Right.
have Wolverine, an old Wolverine. I mean, not old, but a Wolverine that's been in the background for 100 years or 70 years.
what I really wish they would do is just even if they like right now just cast someone. Don't tell anyone. Just have him start showing up in like random little roles. Like just here's in 2 seconds of this movie, and he's in 3 frames of that movie, and he's in 4 frames of this show. And oh yeah, by the way, that was Wolverine the whole time. That'd be awesome.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
Like Arrow, I've been rewatching a little bit of that because it's now 10 years old. So season 3 is when they started introducing the Suicide Squad.
Yep.
But there's a character they introduced, I think it was Cupid. She's in the 3 episodes right before her intro as different person. And I'm always wondering, like, why are they using the same actress 3 episodes in a row for different roles? I know it's the CW and they're cheap as fuck, but I mean, come on. Oh shit, she's a villain who like shows up and is a rival archer to him. That was really cool. But do that on a way bigger scale with Wolverine. I think that'd be pretty awesome. All right.
And we're getting him in the next Deadpool movie.
Hell yeah. I cannot wait for that movie.
It's gonna be crazy because I assume they're gonna use Cable somehow to like
Oh, you have to.
get over to it, and when that happens, Deadpool's just gonna be like, "How do we have you and Thanos now in the same universe? You're the same people. Like, what's going on?"
Yeah, I want them, like, when they jump to this world, there's a mural of Thanos. And I just want them to look over at Brolin and look back at the mural and then look back at Brolin He goes like, "Come on, I can't be the only one seeing this, right?" Like some shit like that.
Well, and they can still play on this because if he's jumping through the multiverse, they can run into the
They show
old
up on they show up on Titan. They just watch him kick ass. I'm like going, damn, you look really good in purple. Like
yeah.
something like that.
And also we can obviously get Old Man Logan from the Logan film
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
I mean, all of it's on the table because I had a conversation on Twitter with someone like, I don't understand. I'm like, well, hey, he jumped into the universe where Wolverine Origins is, and he killed that Wade Wilson.
Yeah.
So like, it's like it can happen where he can jump into a couple of the other worlds now. So and then he just ends up in the 1999, and he's stuck there. But a convergence doesn't happen because
To where I still
I don't
think
know.
Doctor Strange 2 fucked up and didn't have him in one of the cells
I know, I agree. I think he should have been in one of those cells,
because
man.
they
That would've
caught
been
him and
better.
that's what got him stuck. And then he shows up in Doctor Strange's reality, which is the main
Yeah.
MCU reality, because that's where Strange was going. Like he just happened to sneak out and go through the portal and be like, "Hey man, I'm peacing out. Good luck, fighting the big bad guy or whatever," and he fucks off. Like that would have been a great way to get Wade Wilson that we knew from the first two movies in the third one.
But now what you're gonna see is they're retroactively gonna have a shot of that exact scene, and Deadpool will be in one of those cells
Now
Probably.
and doing something like that.
it's 2024 that the movie comes out, right?
That was
2024.
what I thought I saw.
Yes.
Yeah. It's possible that they cast the new Wolverine and he makes a cameo in this movie. And so he
Certainly
and
possible.
He
Oh, yeah.
and Hugh Jackman have a face off of sorts. And like there's ways you could do this now, especially with what you've done with She-Hulk, what you do with Daredevil, like kind of making things break the wall. I mean with Deadpool breaking the wall, you could do that. You could do that. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think that yawn for me is cue to start wrapping up because it's been an
I
hour and a
agree,
half
man.
of recording.
I
Yeah.
got baseball to go watch. Let's go do this. Let's wrap this
I
up.
got work in the morning.
All right. Well, that was episode number 53. A little meandering, but no less fun. We talked some good She-Hulk, talked some Rings of Power, plus some other odds and ends from the world of pop culture nerdiness. Are there any other closing thoughts on the things we talked about tonight, gentlemen? No?
No.
I see
no,
head
it's-
shaking. Okay.
Good
If
content.
you haven't watched either of these things, do yourself a favor and go watch them.
I agree.
Like,
Also
even if
watch
we
Star Trek
spoiled
Lower Decks.
anything for you.
Watch Lower
Okay.
Decks. I'm going to say that every time. Lower Decks fucking rules. Fusion, get on your Paramount Plus binge.
I'm gonna go watch it.
Good, because it's awesome. All right, let's get out of here, everyone. Our Twitter handles are on the screen. I am at MrWartburg. We have at It's Mr. Fusion, at Gammakoruchador. We're live over at twitch.tv/MrWartburg. We stream these episodes live when we record them. Next one will probably next week, talking to the House of the Dragon finale, plus some Black Adam talk. I don't know if we'll have a guest for that one or not. I'll see what I can do. If not, we'll be talking about fun shows anyway. I might take a little bit of a break and might keep streaming. I don't know. I've yet to decide. If I do, it'll probably just be Valheim or something. Because I've been getting back into that game. Mostly because I just need something chill after Hollow Knight. Just like kind of raged me
Yeah.
out last night.
Yeah.
I was quite mad. I slammed a controller real hard into my desk. Yeah, that's where we're going to wrap it up for 53. We'll see you for episode 54 next time. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Night, everybody.